Welcome to Making It with Terri Lyne, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terri Lyne.
I'm Terri Lyne, and my guest today is artist, drummer, educator, Terri Lyne Carrington. I'd like to share with you my intention that inspires this podcast. Time passes quickly, and I've learned that we should do what's in our hearts and do it well without apologies or excuses. I encourage you to create your life and art in your own unique way and express your artistry with joy and abandon. Be willing to work uncompromisingly for what you believe in. Success will have a better chance of finding you when you live your life with integrity, focus, and passion. Be selfish with your discipline and selfless in your performance. And don't forget to have fun along the way. Let me tell you about my guest. Celebrating 40 years in music, NEA jazz master and 3-time Grammy Award-winning drummer, producer, and educator, Terri Lyne Carrington started her professional career in Massachusetts at 10 years old when she became the youngest person to receive a union card in Boston. Her reputation as a kid wonder led to receiving a full scholarship at Berklee College of Music. Carrington worked as an in-demand musician in New York City and later moved to Los Angeles, where she gained recognition on late-night TV as the house drummer for both the Arsenio Hall Show and Quincy Jones' Vibe TV show, hosted by Sinbad. Terri Lyne, welcome to Making It.
Thank you.
We've known each other for a long time, back from when you used to live in Los Angeles, and we actually both worked in late-night TV. You on the Arsenio Hall Show, me on the Byron Allen Show, music directing back then. So I feel we have parallels through our life. We've just kind of sort of done some of the same things at the same time. Even Berklee, I think I was finishing there in 1980, around when you were starting.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, I don't know that we ever talked about that, because I packed my Honda station wagon and drove cross country, to start my career here, and then didn't reconnect. Met you, when you moved to LA. I want to start off talking about your album, and then we'll get into your early life and your family history and everything. And this beautiful, remarkable career and mindful career that you've had. It hasn't been, I don't think, haphazard, although a lot of things happen by chance in our world. You have still had purpose in everything that you do, as long as I've been observing you. And so there's a quote that I read about you that says, at some point, you have to figure out your purpose in life. There are a lot of drummers deemed great. For me, that's not as important as the legacy that you leave behind. And since your website opens with the words freedom, equality, tolerance, justice, love, and segues into your video, Pray the Gay Away, I think this might be a good place to begin our conversation. So let's talk about this beautiful, powerful new album of yours, Waiting Game.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess we come to our own, activism is a good word, our own decisions to speak our truths and what we believe in, and also our willingness to fight for what we believe in some ways. Because once you put something out there, you're putting yourself out there. And it's a band. It's not just my album. There's 6 of us. And I started this band with Aaron Parks, keyboardist, pianist, and Matthew Stevens, the guitarist. And we were traveling in some other configurations of mine. And we always had these deep conversations about the world, about life. And I just felt like, between how much I loved the way they played and how much I really grew to love them as people and love our conversations, I felt we were aligned. And, I thought this would be a great project to start with them and dealing with these very issues that we're talking about. So Aaron and I started to write some music together, and Matthew too, and then we invited Morgan Guerin and Debo Ray, vocalist, and Casa Overall. And that became the group. And one song at a time. It just, happened that way. Bells was our first song, and Aaron wrote the music, and I just envisioned what someone would be saying to a police officer that murdered their loved one. And I tried to get in that headspace, which is, not the easiest thing to do, of course, but it wasn't really, coming from an angry place. It was just trying to come from a place of trying to understand how this kind of thing can happen. And then we just went from there. The election happened. The next song was Waiting Game, which was inspired by the election of 2016.
Waiting Game to me seems like a wake-up call to the injustices in our society that really it's time for them to be fully revealed in order for them to be changed. Mm-hmm. Was that kind of your intention, or?
Well, I mean, people have been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, everything
Sadly.
on this album, unfortunately, everything on this album is, nothing new for the most part. And, I'm sure that we'll have to have protest music and music of the times, forever. I mean, issues change. It would be great. We think about things like world peace and, we think about a society where we don't have racism and sexism and, ableism or, people abusing the planet and, all these things. I'm not sure, when that will really happen, that kind of utopia. So I think there will always be a place for artists to, encourage people to maybe think differently or encourage, or point to a different future. I think that's what's really important from artists, is to point to the kind of society, to the kind of future you want to have, to the kind of society you want to live in. Try to make an example of that and use your platform to talk about issues. And sometimes I think people don't really think any differently. They hear a song, they like the song, or they don't. I'm not sure it really does anything to change their views. But this time, because of the kind of year we had in 2020, I've gotten phone calls from people, especially around gender equity or gender justice. I've gotten phone calls from people that I've known for years and years and told me that they're finally thinking about this issue differently. So I feel, like there is impact, when you earnestly talk about an issue and you can reach somebody through the emotion that music connects humanity with, emotional connection and, intellectual connection. There are all these different connections, but when it comes together in a song that somebody likes or appreciates or may even love, there's something special about that, and it's very powerful. So I'm just happy that our album touched as many people as it did.
And still is. And by the way, you've also garnered some really wonderful consideration or support from Billboard, and I've got a list right here. So let me see where it is. Downbeat listed number 1 on top rated albums of the year 2019. Jazz Times Critic Poll Artist of the Year. Rolling Stone Best Jazz Albums 2019. Boston Globe Jazz Artist of the Year. Pop Matters Best Jazz Albums 2019. That's just a few.
Wow. Can you send that to me?
Yeah, I can. Time to update your website.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I'll text you after the show.
I'm like, I did all that?
Apparently. Yes, you did. And that's something to be proud of.
It is really, but
yeah.
The thing is, I don't think about that stuff. It happens and I'm so honored and flattered. And then I'm just thinking about the next thing. And I don't know, sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. Because, I think we should be able to think about how we've been honored or supported or encouraged. And I don't spend any time really thinking about that stuff. So if you had asked me the question, like, who said you were whatever artist or album of the year, I would have had to stop and think about it.
I will definitely send it to you. But I know what you mean, because it's, it's about the work, it's about the intention, and it's not about swimming in the glory of it. But I do agree with you that it's important just to take moments to stop and reflect on how your art impacts people. And that's, to me, I view that as a reflection. When you get a Grammy Award and you've received 3 of them, it's a reflection of the work that you do. And what you're doing with your life. And of course, there's a lot of, drama controversy with Grammys and who gets excluded and who doesn't. As a matter of fact, just the very fact that you were the very first woman to receive a Grammy in the jazz instrumental category, my first instinct when I learned that about you was, oh, that's great. I love Terri Lyne. My second was, what took this so long? And I'm sure your reaction would be the same because of your involvement in gender equality. And
right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a bit of a bittersweet win for that reason.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody would have to, be the first. I'm grateful
right.
that
it's great it's you
received the award.
Yeah.
But the larger problem is that we were in, close to, I don't know, it's close to 2020. That was what, I don't remember the year exactly. 2017, 2015. But anyway, we're well into, this new century, and I can't believe that it took that long. There's so many amazingly talented women.
Right.
Some that obviously we know about, and then there's so many that we don't know about that never got the acknowledgement or credit for their work. So that's, really what I'm focused on. Not just looking back at those women that didn't get acknowledged, or the women that we know that were still probably under acknowledged, but really trying to create and help to be a part of creating, a different culture in jazz, one, that doesn't have as much bias or as much, that doesn't gender instruments, or that doesn't, that just supports everybody being able to be their authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going into a new age with that, because there's a lot of people that aren't accepting this binary of male female. So we have to deal with that, and how do we support, people on those margins.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the guests that I had this past year during COVID, during the pandemic, was our mutual friend Roger Brown, the president of Berklee, or the former president of Berklee. He just retired. He's been incredibly. He's an outside thinker, because he has done a lot of things, before doing that he's an activist, and he's a broad thinker. But one of the things that Roger spoke about that he was very proud of was you. And basically the Berklee Institute of Jazz and Gender Justice that you created with his encouragement. Can you tell me about it and our listeners?
Well, sure. I think the first thing I would have to say is that I had an amazing career. From 18, I started traveling the world and all that, but I was professional from age 10. That's when I got my union card. And I felt nothing but support, because that's all I chose to see. My father was,
he was a jazz sax player, right?
Yes. He played saxophone. My grandfather played drums.
Mm-hmm.
But,
and your mom plays piano, correct?
Yeah, well, she studied piano. She didn't, play gigs or anything.
Okay.
But she knew music. Yes. Mm-hmm. And my dad knew everybody in jazz. It's just his way. Some people just know everybody. And my dad is that kind of guy. So, he was able to take me around to all these people and say, listen, my daughter can play, give her a shot. And because they knew him and trusted him, they would. And that just doesn't happen, with a lot of people, whether they're male or female.
Right.
So, my situation was very unique and different. And that's the kind of mentoring, the kind of support that one needs. He literally helped me to have access, to the jazz stage. And young women just don't have that same kind of access in general. So when I got to Berklee as a professor, it was about 5 years ago or so, I had a meeting with some of the young women that studied jazz there, and they told me really terrible stories, and none of it related to me and my upbringing and my
Right.
career. And it just struck me, that this is so wrong, and how, because of my success, I really have to do something, whatever I can,
Right.
to at least create or start with creating a space here at the college where they feel welcomed and that they can not have their guard up. And then it just started kind of moving outside of the college, of course, as well, because it's really a cultural transformation that we're asking for. And I do think the collegiate area is important to start that work, even before high school, band directors, middle school, all of that. It all kind of needs a bit of an overhaul, and people need to be accountable for not supporting women the same way that they support young men. And then when you go into the professional world, we have unions, of course, but we don't have the same thing like HR and, these checks and balances like companies do. So people just, they're able to hire who they want for whatever reasons they want. And I think that's important in art. You should be able to do that to create your art. But there's a lack of consciousness sometimes, about why gender balance is important. So that's pretty much, the work I've dedicated myself to, and that I think I'll be dedicated to for the rest of my life, because I'm not sure we'll fully have gender equity, anytime real soon. But I do see it moving in the right direction, and I see a lot of effort being made, especially with young people. So my hope is definitely in this generation right now, the college students now, because they have a different outlook and they're very inspiring. And I'm super encouraged that they're the ones that are going to help us get there.
And the work you're doing with that program, and that's not the only program. There's two other universities or organizations that you also work with, but that's global, right? This isn't just local. It's not just or national, because a lot of the students at Berklee are from around the world. So
Right.
Does it feel like you are connecting globally or making an impact globally as opposed to nationally?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, well, one, even with the record waiting game, those issues, I was, kind of speaking specifically on issues that happened, and that things that have happened in the United States that I've experienced or witnessed. But I didn't speak about them in a way that really called specific things out so much, maybe a few of the songs, but for the most part, they're global issues as well. So, the album has been widely accepted, globally, because unfortunately, most of these issues are universal. But the same thing, so when you're looking at gender, justice, that is, most definitely a global issue. I've done a lot of Zooms, workshops and things like that, for different places. I have one coming up, that's for Bolivia, did one for Chile, did one for, Amsterdam, Canada. So, I think that, of course, the work spreads. When you start something that's meaningful and that other people can relate to, it's going to have legs and travel, because unfortunately, these issues are not just here in the United States, but technically the Berklee Institute of Jazz and Gender Justice, we only have classes at Berklee.
Right. Got it.
But we collaborate, sometimes with other people.
Well, I think that there's a ripple effect that's happening. The very fact that I knew about it, not being a woman, not being a student at Berklee right now, but it's still, even before I was preparing for our conversation today, I was aware that was one of the things that you were doing. So, so
well, you're an alum, so hopefully
that's right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but I mean, people are writing about it because, as far as I know, it was the first institute of its kind. Though there are classes in several places on jazz and gender, but I mean, this is just something that we have to tackle because it's such an incredible art form, and it won't reach its full potential really until we have this kind of equity.
The other two organizations that I was referring to were the Carr Center in Detroit and also Little Black Pearl in Chicago that you're
I see.
affiliated with. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm the artistic director for the Carr Center in Detroit, and we do a lot of cool things. Of course, it was programming, live events, live concerts. They also do dance, visual arts, and theater. But I was more involved, of course, on the music end. And now we've shifted to live streaming, and like so many people have during the pandemic, and it's been pretty cool in the sense that a lot more people know about the Carr Center now, and some of these things that have happened during the pandemic, I feel will benefit us in the long run. Not that we wanted it to happen this way, but I think that there's always opportunities, with struggle. And if we can look at it like that, especially while we're in the struggle, we're already winning. When you can look at it like, I know this is struggle, but struggle is just part of life. There's going to be some struggle at some point. And so if we can look at it like it's a part of life, but it's not the essence, it's not like it won't be here forever. And look at the opportunities that are created during it. I think that's really key. And so for me, I mean, I've been working so many other ways during the pandemic. It's really crazy. In the Carr Center, we're going to do also in May of next year, I'll be doing a Jazz Without Patriarchy exhibit, which will be a multidisciplinary collaboration with a lot of other artists. So I'm really excited about that. And I have just about a year to pull it together, and which is not a lot of time for all the collaborations that I'm trying to do. And then Little Black Pearl is an organization in Chicago that I've been on the board for a long time. I don't know, maybe close to 20 years. Somewhere between maybe 15 to 20 years, but started by a dear friend of mine, Monica Haslett. And it started as an afternoon, after school program, and then became an art and design academy, a school. And it's very cool because it's on the south side of Chicago, and it was taking kids that people felt like, were going to fail or were at risk somehow. And it just proved, because most of them all graduated with honors, and it just really proved the power of art. And when you can, they did it mostly with visual art, but there's music involved too, but mostly visual art. And it's just such a shining example of when you give young people, someplace to focus, someplace to be, and also, things that help them have better self-esteem, and how to apply themselves with something that they like, with interest, so they have interest in. There's nothing they can't do, and that model really needs to be all over the place. Inner cities, places, marginalized communities, and but we've been saying this. I think we all kind of know that. Somehow it doesn't exactly happen.
One would think.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, you referenced, as far as activism in music, earlier in our conversation, that this has been going on a long time. I mean, you think back to Pete Seeger, and of course Marvin Gaye and Joan Baez and Nina Simone, Richie Havens, There, in addition to all the rock artists, I mean, music has been a very powerful way to shake the trees, to wake people up from their coma or their blindness of what's going on in the world around them. So,
and even further back, I mean, like Billie Holiday.
There you go.
Even when records started,
right.
Mamie Smith and Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey, there were a lot of political messages in these Black women's blues songs.
Right.
So, and I, it's interesting when I look at it like that, because there were men making blues records too, but it seems like more of the women were the activists, and maybe because people didn't find them as threatening, or
good point.
The message was delivered a little differently.
Right.
But the point is, this kind of activism has been around since the beginning.
Yeah, and I'm glad that artists like you are continuing to do so, and anybody else who's listening, it's keep doing it. Keep doing it. I want to go back to your early life. I was looking at the photo album on your website that's titled Her Story, or Her Story. And it begins with a few childhood photos with you and your family and some of your early mentors. But in a lot of the photos, you're just grinning or smiling or laughing. And I was wondering, were you just pretty much a happy kid? I'm not suggesting that it was a perfect, easy life, but there's a lot of grinning pictures on your website.
You keep telling me things about myself that I didn't realize. I'll have to go back and look at that website. But, you see, I'm smiling right now. So, yeah. I really,
me too.
I try to choose happiness.
Right.
I try to live in that state, that life condition. I've practiced Buddhism for a while, and, teaches us that there are these life conditions that we can move through. And as quickly as we can be in a state of suffering, we can move just as quickly into a state of enlightenment or a state of happiness. So that's what I try to do. I try to, choose to be there, because it feels better. I thrive more, in that state. My messages are received more in that state. I'm not,
right.
It just feels better. And, I think sometimes
that's
it's
interesting.
A choice, if you have that luxury of being able to even think about it that much, because some people don't have it because their life is such a struggle,
right,
that they're, struggling to survive. And I've never had quite that feeling, I've always worked. And, so I'm grateful, I'm thankful, I'm prayerful, all of those things. And I have a lot to smile about.
And you've always worked in your, I was going to say chosen field, but the field that chose you, music, because you were born into it and encouraged, to grow your natural gift. I want to talk about some of your mentors and influences, and there are many, and it's interesting too, because at this time of our life, both you and I, and not just recently, for a long time, we've been mentoring as well, and understand the power of holding a hand out and shining a light on knowledge or perspective, with the next generation. I want to start with Ella Fitzgerald, because I know that you had a friendship with her when you were a young kid, and she also really kind of was instrumental, literally, in getting you up on stage, and seen for the first time, in a big public way. Can you talk about your friendship with Ella and that first experience when she got you up on in a club?
I don't know if I call it a friendship. That might be overstating it a little bit. Okay. But she's somebody, because, the jazz community is a community.
It's a community.
It's just that. It's a community. So we kind of all know each other, and, all the music communities are like that. I think jazz, there's so much of a love for the music and a desire for this music to continue, because it is appreciated by a small percentage of the population. I think 1% is where it stands with music consumption. So it's been, incredibly successful given that, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it was always that, because of course it was the popular music at one time. But when Ella would come through town, again, because my dad knew everybody, you could have a deep conversation with somebody, even if you didn't have their phone number, or you weren't, necessarily picking up the phone to call them as a friend. You could still have important and deep conversations. And they could be life-changing, and so with Ella, because I was young and I played the drums, and I was, probably because I was a little girl too, she took a liking to me. And so we'd be in the dressing room when she came through Boston. And, sometimes I remember a couple of times where she would, her tour manager would come and say, okay, everybody had to leave. She needed to get ready for the show. But she would tell me to stay, and,
Right.
I was young, 10, 11 years old. And, I just, kind of cherish those moments. So what's interesting about what you're asking is I always related that story with Oscar Peterson.
Right.
Asking me to sit in, and the president, and his wife, Berklee, Lawrence and Alma Burke, they heard me play and offered me a full scholarship to college when I was 11.
11 years old. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's how I always told that story. But, over the last year or so, my dad and my mother reminded me that it was Ella that took me by the hand to Oscar, and that in her, even though she had really, I'm not sure she had even heard me play.
She just talked to you. Yeah, knew you.
But what it was is I had played with Clark Terry the night before.
Got it.
And his drummer, it was a snowstorm. His drummer didn't show up. I played the whole 2 sets, right, at a club. So and she already knew me from coming around. But then I said, yeah, I played 2 sets with Clark Terry last night. And we were sitting on the side of the stage watching Oscar Peterson play with Keita Betts and Butch Miles. And so when he came off, she just grabbed me by the hand and took me over to Oscar and said, you got to meet this young lady. She played with Clark Terry last night. And he was like, what? I got to hear this. It was kind of like that. But if she hadn't have walked me over there, it probably wouldn't have happened. And I look at how my memory just, it erased her part of my story, and that the scholarship to Berklee was a big part of my story.
Yeah. How old were you when you started your studies at Berklee?
Well, I started at 10, just taking lessons, and then I got this scholarship at 11. So, I went once a week from 11 all through high school till I went full time at 17.
So, right. So that's why I was thinking about the timing of why we didn't really know each other, but I knew of you because there was a buzz about you in school. And the school was smaller back then. There were like about 1,000 people, studying. And honestly, at the time, there were of those 1,000, there were probably about 8 women there.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'm still friends with some of the women who I went to school with. And, but it was a really interesting dynamic, there as well. But there was talk of you, coming to, studying at a young age. There were, and I thought it was great, by the way. I thought it was really cool. And there are other people, like I believe that Jack DeJohnette encouraged you to move to New York.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was that like? Did your mom and dad go with you, or because you were 15 or 16 when you moved to New York?
No. I was 18.
18. Okay. Never mind. I retract the question.
Just barely illegal.
Although that still doesn't qualify. That doesn't give you the skill set just because you're 18.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. New York is a big city.
It is. What was that like?
Funny story about that though is when we got a truck, to move there, and I moved into this apartment with a fellow student from Berklee, and it was in Spanish Harlem. It was a rough neighborhood, and we pulled up in this, U-Haul. And my mother and father were like, oh my God.
What have we done?
Yeah, like somebody please protect her.
Yeah.
And then when we got we got our keys, and I was checking, this is the mailbox key, and there was a piece of mail in the mailbox. And when we pulled the mail out, the name on the piece of mail was my mother's name, who had passed. I had never met her. And my mother said, "You'll be okay."
Wow. Right. Protected.
It was really heavy because like, why was her name? And we were in Spanish Harlem, remember?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like really odd that her name was on a piece of mail in there.
That's a great story.
Yeah, but I mean, I moved with a gig actually, and that's actually a blessing in itself. To the point, I know Danilo Perez and I talk a lot because we're best of friends. He's like a brother to me. And, he's like across the hall at Berklee, the Global Jazz Institute. And it's funny because we'll say, yeah, maybe just try not to move to New York till you have a gig. Like move with something solid.
That's sage advice.
Which is difficult, because steady gigs are hard to come by now. And, but mine was with Clark Terry. And he had pretty much promised me that gig, from when I was a kid. So he's like, yeah, when you move to New York,
call me.
Yeah. And I called him, I think I'm about to move. He's like, okay, well, you got the gig.
That's pretty remarkable. I mean, you know that, right? Because I've interviewed a lot of people in the last 4 years. Many of them are, people that are friends of both of ours, but very high profile, very successful artists, producers, engineers, actors, etc. Half of, I would say, probably more than half of those people moved to LA, or to New York or wherever they moved to, where they landed, and had to get a day gig. It's kind of a common story. I'm always kind of fascinated, entertained by people's first years, when they hit the ground where they decided they're going to give a go at it, or the various different places, because you did that in New York and then you moved to LA. But did you move to LA with a TV gig, or you moved to LA and then got the gig?
Well, I kind of did. How that happened was, I went to LA a lot because I was playing with Wayne Shorter.
Right.
And Diane Reeves lived in LA, and she was my longest friend. I met her when I was 10 on my first professional gig with Clark Terry. And then he kind of, mentored both of us. So she was in LA, Wayne Shorter was in LA, and then we had I met Patrice Rushen at that same gig with Clark Terry, but she was playing with Hubert Laws. And I wasn't in touch with her. Like, I was in touch with Diane through those years, but I wasn't in touch with her again until I was around 21, playing with Wayne. And I ended up recommending her to play on Wayne's record Joyrider. And then, we kindled, friendship. Not that we had one when we met, but,
Sure. Right.
It was 10 years earlier. But anyway, she really encouraged me to move and so I could stay with her. So I stayed in Pasadena. I went out there for a couple of weeks, I guess, just to look around, try to maybe find an apartment. So I found an apartment, and I was gonna just, kind of take my time. And then there was this audition for the Arsenio Hall show. So I went to it. It happened to be while I was there.
Did you know Michael Wolff already, or no? Through the jazz world, or not?
I don't think
really.
So we, he knew, I think, of me.
Sure.
Like we had the kind of, well, my dad, he played with Cannonball Adderley, and my dad was very close to Cannonball and Nat. So I'm sure they had met,
right.
And actually Nat, one of my first really kind of major gigs was subbing for Jimmy Cobb when I was 14 with Nat, when they came to Boston. But so Patrice and Narda Walden recommended me for the Arsenio gig. And they consciously wanted to have a couple of women in the band, which now I look back and I say, yeah, that was a good thing, to show,
diversity.
Diversity on the stage. But anyway, so I went to the audition, and I remember this was in December, mid-December of 1988.
Right.
And when I went to the audition, they said, you got the gig. And I said, oh, great. Like, when do we start? How do we? And because I hadn't moved yet,
Right.
and they said, next week, you have to be here in a week. I was like, what? So I went back to New York, had to pack everything, get everything back, and, be as settled as I could in a week over New Year. It was Christmas and New Year.
Right.
Because the beginning was like January 2. So I had, it was a really incredible timing because nothing was open. It was just really difficult. But I did it and got there and stayed with Patrice a little bit. But then I, got my first place in Glendale, and then another, when I bought a condo in Glendale, and then I moved to Lakeview Terrace and was there for probably about 10 years, and then moved back to Boston. So all in all, I was in LA area for 17 years.
It's a long time. We, I'm curious because since we both were kind of starting our late night talk show careers around the same time, I had done the late show on Fox before that, the year before, and then started the Byron Allen show around the same time that Arsenio had started his show with you and the cool band that you guys had. And and you were there, you didn't stay the entirety of the run of the show. And so my question to you is, what's your takeaway from that experience, playing drums in a late night talk show? It was different for me because I was a music director, guitar player. But as a drummer, I know some of the answers because I know some of the really great things about the job and some of the things that are not as rewarding, like you don't get to play as much as you would think. You're stopping, you're playing in and out of commercials, and you're backing up artists, which is a blast, of course, different styles and genres. But what were your favorite things about it? What were your frustrating or least favorite parts about it? And I'm saying that I'm not looking for trash. And I'm saying this with the greatest love and respect for Arsenio, who I got to know a little bit because I guested on the show a few times with other bands. And it was always a great experience for me, being on your set, the few times that I was there, there was an integrity and a kindness and a love for music that I really appreciated. So, but what was it like for you? Was it fun?
Yeah.
Was it cool?
Oh, absolutely. It was totally fun. I mean, TV is fun.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And it really boosted my career.
Yes,
too.
the visibility.
I was grateful for that because I came out with a record while I was on the show. And the record did well, for a jazz record, contemporary jazz record, at the time for a new artist. It sold like 100,000 units. So that was,
That's insane. That's and wonderful because those are huge numbers for a jazz artist.
Yeah,
absolutely, for
sure. But then I couldn't get arrested after that, which is even more interesting.
I know that feeling as well. So, so what's your version of that story?
I know, right? We all have it. Right?
I have it.
Different versions. No, but I think the thing is, you're right. The show and the vibe, it was, like a family, and it was, a beautiful and respectful vibe. And I think, at the end of the day, it was a miscommunication for why I left, because I had asked for a couple of weeks off, and they said yes, but they meant no, but they said yes.
Right.
So now I had this tour planned, and then they said at the last minute, listen, if you go, we're going to have to get another drummer. And they already had different kind of well-known drummers lined up.
Sure.
To sub, Michael White, Induga Chancellor,
right.
A couple of others. So I just felt like, wow, to do that after when I asked and he said yes.
Right. It was a simple, clear question.
Yeah. And nobody said, well, yeah, if you do it, you can't come back.
Right.
And they're going to say that at the last minute. I felt a little like you're asking me now to choose you over me when I did the right thing in the first place by asking. And I just, I didn't cancel my tour.
Right. You held to your commitment.
Yeah, I held to my commitment. And so that's what happened. But, I just feel like it was not malicious. It was just bad communication.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they should have just said, we don't want that, you know, at the beginning. But anyway, it was okay because, that summer, I started playing with Herbie Hancock. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that was really important, you know, part of my life and relationship, you know, just important to my career. And I learned so much, you know, from playing with him. So I just kind of, you know, think the universe unfolds as it should.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had another late night show with Quincy Jones' Vibe TV show.
Mm-hmm. Great show.
And that was 10 years after. And I had a lot of incredible experiences on that show playing with, because that was more of an R&B show, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we got to play with James Brown, Rick James, Charlie Wilson,
Mm-hmm.
Aaliyah, Beyonce with Destiny's Child,
Mm-hmm.
just a lot of people. So I had just, you know, so many amazing experiences on
Aren't
both
they?
shows.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that the rare opportunity that we've both been given, or that we've stepped into and fully prepared, you know, not by chance, but, you know, the experience of working with so many iconic artists in so many different genres, you don't really get that experience outside of working on a late night talk show. And it was always like the coolest thing for me. You know, again, you're playing with MC Hammer one night, and then with Whitney Houston, and then
exactly what we did.
You know, and a country artist, and you know, and a rock and a blues guy, and I mean, it really pulls from your vocabulary and your skill set, and I find that really exciting artistically.
I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a jazz head, but I'm a music head first.
Right. And I was just going to say that because like people love to identify you as a anything. And sometimes it's exclusive, or oftentimes it is. Oh, she's a jazz drummer.
Right.
She's whatever, you know, even the word she, you know, like there's like you start assigning, you know, gender and color of skin and, you know, sexuality and all these things. And like people forget that, you know, you can play with James Brown and you can play with Herbie Hancock. Like you've got the ability and the desire, and our audience is applauding. Thank you for that. I've always found it really interesting, but you've done pretty well at not being pigeonholed because you've worked with, you know, a lot of artists in a lot of different genres. And I think that's great. There's a quote from Wayne Shorter. And Wayne said, here, I'll send this one to you as well. If you don't.
Please do.
Yeah. So Wayne says, she's one of the finest drummers in the world. She has a lot of finesse. She decorates, and she can also drop some bombs. She made the bass drum sing and the tenor drum sing and the snare drum not just a rattle. Here's the part that I love of what he said. She knew how to tell a story. So my question to you as a musician, how would you describe the art of telling a story to a person who is not an artist?
Goodness, that's a beautiful compliment from Wayne.
Isn't it?
And I don't know if I can really tell a story on the drums. I think, you know, my gift with telling stories ends up being
as a writer, composer,
and a producer, and putting things together.
Right.
I know how to arrange things, and put things together, to lead in that way, you know, so that the story is told. I'm not sure that I can just sit down to the drum set and tell a story, but I can, as a collective person, help shape a story that a song needs to, you know, have, or the band is telling. So maybe that's, you know, what he meant, because I'm like one of those drummers that I take one solo a night and, you know, that's all I have.
Right.
And it may be short.
Yeah, I'm for that too.
Yeah, he has a lot of insight, you know, into human beings. And
Wayne, yeah.
I think what he also is relating to is just this thing that he and Herbie talk about, which is we're not playing music, we're playing life.
Right.
And I feel like, my life is a story, and I do try to put my whole being and my whole life into whatever music I'm creating.
Mm-hmm.
So that story is there because I'm 100% present, in the music. And I think that's what connects to humanity. It's like this life to life connection.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's hiring me because they want fast singles or, they want some kind of exhibition on the drum set.
Mm-hmm.
No one's hiring me for a show.
Right.
Like, like somebody's going to get house from a drum solo. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're hiring me for a certain kind of connection.
Has that level of awareness that you're talking about, or being present, has that grown in you as you've gotten older, or do you feel that was sort of instilled in you at a young age, just to not just listen, but to be present?
Well, I was able to articulate it a little older,
Sure.
when I was a little older, but I think it was always there in some way. I think that I didn't ever spend a whole lot of time thinking about what I'm going to play, because whenever I did that, it didn't come out good.
You mean you got in your head?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like if I start thinking about, I practiced this and now let me see if I can work this in tonight.
Right.
If I ever thought like that, it never worked out well.
Right.
Even to this day, if I catch myself saying, I heard somebody do this, let me try it. It's like, oops, nope. So I'm forced to just be as much of an open vessel,
right,
as I can. And when I'm doing that and I'm in that space, then it all tends to work out.
It's refreshing for me to hear you, and not just as a musician, but as a drummer, say, I'm just going to take a solo and it might not be a long one, that's my approach to guitar as well. I just got asked recently if I would, when things, where things are starting to get safer, people are dipping their toe in the water to do mask on, socially distance or just mindful performances so we all stay safe. But it's, it's starting to come back. And I was asked to do a guest appearance with somebody, and I basically said, yeah, that sounds great. What are the conditions, and I make sure that the audience is safe and that I'm safe and that it's comfortable to say yes. Cause it's a little terrifying, just to get back. But but the thing is, I said, I'll take a 16 bar solo, like there's no ice. And I was very clear in the notes. I said, make sure everybody knows it's not an open thing, because I thought, well, I don't need to do that. I can say it in less time. And I think it's kind of fun to do that. Mm-hmm. I find it, like a good, hey, some of my favorite sax solos or guitar solos. Yeah. Look at Phil Woods, Just the Way You Are, Billy Joel, mm-hmm. 8 bars, and I mean, right? And you take that solo away and it's not the song. Okay. You can't play that song without that solo. If you're a sax player, at least quoting it. And so, there's a beauty in being able to say it in less words, with clarity. It's more like haiku in a way, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not having command of things, like even with, you can compare that to speaking, to teaching. It's, how can you get to the point as quickly as possible? And it's it's still being meaningful and having as much impact as possible. And I think it's the same thing with soloing. And it says a lot about a person, because when somebody solos, we all have experienced, while playing and even as a listener, solos that are just too long.
Right.
And the first thing you think about is, this person is clueless.
Mm-hmm.
They're selfish.
It's selfish, right.
Self-centered. I won't say selfish. Okay. But self-centered. Clueless, right, and not aware of their surroundings, not aware of themselves, right, and what people are feeling. So that says a lot about somebody. And the person that's supportive, wants to get in and get out, is humble.
Right, right.
That says a lot about somebody, and they're playing reflective.
Absolutely. There's somebody in our audience who's a friend of ours, who's an artist that we have both worked with, Ray Fuller, who just, Ray, are you there?
Oh my goodness.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you, brother?
Wow. Oh my God.
Ray!
I can't even tell you.
Well, first of all, we both love
love
you,
her.
Ray. We love you.
Absolutely. I was just
Thank you.
telling Terry said you might pop in, and I was just saying, I
Oh,
love Ray.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm not very technical, but this was very simple.
Good.
You guys are so clear, but
Good.
I love that lady on the other end
Mhm.
of this phone. Oh my God.
Well, Ray, you had Terri Lyne play on your album, The Weeper. And I know that you've got many experiences, performing together, but
Yes.
tell me the impact or what is Terri Lyne? How has she been a blessing in your life? Let me just ask it that way.
Yeah, it's the best
All
way
right.
because it covers everything in every way. But I'll tell you what, I can sum it up in her performance on that project.
Yeah.
If I could just preempt that with one thing. I met her when I first got out here, and she took me to somebody who was a dear friend today. She took me, and if I think about it, I get nervous because this guy is awesome, and I'm like, but Terri believed in me so much, she took me to meet a friend of hers,
Mhm.
Larry Williams,
Oh.
the great producer
Yeah.
from Jarreau World and all that. And I remember the day she took me to his house to introduce me to him and have me play on something.
Mhm.
And it just occurred to me how great of influence she's been in my life, going back to my record and so many other projects in between.
Right.
But she came and blessed my record. She created that arrangement
Mhm.
of Naima
Oh, yeah.
on the Weeper. And this could be my life record. I don't know. I may not do 100 records
No.
or another one.
You got another one in you,
She's-
Ray. Come on.
Yeah, I will get it out. But I loved her. She brought everything that she would probably bring to those great records that she produces
Right.
and artists. She did it to me, and she's just been a dear friend. But she only has one level of working, and that's integral.
Mhm.
And that's all I know. Humble and but we walked Central Park together.
Yeah.
How many
That's
times?
what I was
Terry?
just gonna say.
Please.
We walked Central for the whole park, like from
The whole
Harlem
park.
to
Midtown.
Midtown.
And back. And then we had to go down to Soho.
Oh yeah, we
and-
walked further. We walked all the way down to the village or something. From
Do
Harlem
you hear
to
us,
the
Terry?
village.
I do.
That's my
Yeah.
sister.
Was-
I love her.
Did you guys play together with George Duke at the same time or separately?
I think we did
Okay.
George
Just
together.
maybe on some
I think-
recording.
Maybe on
a
where
record.
it was,
Yeah.
overdubbed. and
Got it.
something
Yes.
like that, yeah.
Ray,
But
is there anything you want to ask?
I'm sorry?
Is there anything that you want to ask Terri Lyne?
Just can I want to talk to you again soon. That's all.
All
And
right.
maybe, please. Oh, here's my question. Yeah, we put it in on live. Terry, play on another song with me one day. I
Of
If I
course.
get this second record. Okay, that's it. That's all I want.
Absolutely. And you know that.
I love her.
Well,
I
then,
am fan. Sorry.
then I humbly offer my services to be on that same track as your second guitar player, Ray.
Please.
Yeah. Remember Ray when we went to London and we did that Billie Holiday.
Oh
Yeah, we
my
played when
God.
Amy Winehouse was one of our guests.
Mhm.
And, yeah,
It won an award. It won.
Oh,
What
really?
award? Yeah, it won. Yeah. Oh my God. Terry was producing it and she was music director too. But, it was, and Dee Dee Bridgewater.
Mhm.
Oh my God.
There was all kinds of people. Michelle, Layla Hathaway,
Yes.
Chrissy Hines.
See, Terri Lyne drags me into these incredible things you don't realize is happening. And she's like George Duke to me. She did it. She touched my life so deep.
Mhm.
So no matter how I ever felt or had to deal with this woman, I can think about what she's done and it's like, wow, somebody loved me out there. She's the one.
You know it. You know it.
Mhm. Ray, thanks for joining the conversation.
Thank you. It was my honor. Thank you.
Call
I'm
me.
listening. I will.
Okay.
So Terri Lyne and Ray, you can mute yourself. We're getting towards the end of our conversation, so I don't want to keep you, but I want to ask you my closing questions, and then I'll give you closing thoughts, words, anything that's on your mind. Since this show is completely unedited, we can speak about anything. But what I want to ask first is, since the show's called Making It, what does making it mean to you, both personally and professionally? And also, can you offer 3 tips to success that have driven your career?
Making it means really doing what you love. And if you're able to do what you love and not compromise a lot, that's incredible. If you're able to support yourself doing what you love, or even having to do other things, but still be able to have a major focus on what you love, especially in the creative field, because I think creative people have to be creative, no matter what. The pandemic hit, and one thing I came away with is, if you're creative, you're going to be creative during the pandemic. You just find a new way.
Right.
You find other things to do, but you still will remain a creative force. And so that, to me, making it is understanding that, I'm speaking about musicians, understanding that if you have a calling, understanding that, and nurturing, that calling, and having other people help you nurture that calling, and figuring out your mission. I think there's a mission for all of us, purpose and a mission, and figuring that out. If you're able to figure it out on the earlier side, that's great. I'm not sure I did until maybe the later side, but I did, and that's an incredible feeling. And when you do that, you start, working toward that end. And it's not about money. It's not about fame. It's really about the mission. And so for me, I feel like, as all the great things that have happened, I feel like I'm finally making it for real, because it's on my terms now.
Right.
And as far as tips, I think that was the tip, really, into your authentic self, and try to figure out your purpose and mission. And when you do that, and you're not comparing yourself to others, that's a great gift, to be okay with you being the best you can be, and figuring out how to just connect with people, because that's what we're doing. If you can't do that, well, that's going to be a problem. You have to be the type of person that people want to connect with, people can identify with, they can feel themselves somehow, through whatever you're putting out there. They want to connect with that. So I think, you have to work on those types of skills and understandings of the nuances and subtleties that allow for those things to happen. And then also, just on a practical level, you have to understand the business. You have to do the work. It's no more a business where you can just be good. He's great or she's great, and they'll just work, and everything will fall into place because you play well. That I don't believe in that. I feel like you have to understand and you have to study. So I guess that would be it.
That's a handful, and I appreciate your answers. And that's very clear. There's a lot of clarity in what you just said, and I stand in agreement with you on every one of those things. I always marvel when somebody slips through the cracks, who's kind of an asshole just based on their ability to play an instrument. But it seems like that's not my path either. Mine is more similar to yours. To stand in purpose, integrity, to really be mindful, to really be grateful, to bring gratitude into it. And you do all those things. So, which is part of the reason I wanted to talk to you today. So,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That. My closing question. Oh, go ahead. I just got you.
I was going to say, it's been great reconnecting.
Yeah, for me as well. Yeah. At this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
That's funny. Somebody asked me that last week.
Wow.
And I didn't have a great answer then, and I probably still don't, because I didn't think about it since then. I think I think it would have to be to not worry about certain things, like not worry about what other people think, fitting in, because especially, in this music field, being a young woman, playing in a male-dominated field, there's a lot of things that go on. And even though I approached it like I was, basically one of the guys, and I'm because I'm not really intimidated by other people.
Right.
That's just a personality thing. But at the same time, we can have insecurities, and we can have all these other things that can slip in and be destructive in some way, not even if it's not a major way. And I wish I had come to certain things earlier, not worrying so much about what I felt like people thought, speaking, musically, because that's also going to slip into other areas of life. So I spent a lot of years, like after a gig, oh my God, it was terrible. Oh, I sucked. And it's too much of that was happening. And, playing with Wayne Shorter really helped because, one day he said, music is just a drop in the ocean of life. And once I really embraced that, I think, I was on a different path. But I think that women especially have to deal with too many extra things.
Right.
It's not fair, and it's takes time and energy away from the most important thing at that time in your development is to learn the music, to learn how to play, to learn your instrument, to figure out your artistry, what you're trying to do with your life. And nobody wants to be worried about all of these other things that your male counterparts don't have to worry about. So if there's any way to avoid the extra chatter in your head because of that, speaking to young women, that's advice I would give myself and give other young women.
In listening to you say that, I'm just thinking about what a distraction it must be. Being a woman, where you're either getting too much attention or maybe unwanted attention for your femininity, or you're just being a woman, like a sexual interest, or you are not being respected for who you are because just simply because of your gender. And I would think that must be just incredibly, that must get old really quick, and because there are other women musicians that I'm friends with who are very successful, and they've kind of said the same thing. I just sort of felt like I was one of the guys. I've been doing it so long, but generally you are in the minority of being one or two women, or three, if you're fortunate, in a group of, 10 other guys or 4 guys and road crew and all that stuff. So, but it circles back to the work that you're doing, and just lifting people and getting them stuck out of these perceptions or boundaries that they view life with.
And also, the work that we're doing is as much with men as it is with women, because there'll never be this kind of justice and equity we're talking about if it's left to women to do it, and everybody has to do the work.
I would imagine. I'm thinking like when you get a puppy and you want to go to dog training, you're training not the dog, you're training the person who has, the pet. So
exactly. You get it.
I do. I do. I understand you. I hear you. Anyway, any closing words? Where can people find you?
I don't
just
even
Google your
all
name.
The handles. Yeah. But TerriLyneCarrington.com. I remember that. And that's the website. But on the website, of course, has you can click on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But I'm on all those places, and I'm not hard to find.
Nope, not at all. Everybody go check out Terri Lyne Carrington's most recent album. and videos. They're powerful, they're beautiful, they're incredibly musical. They even show off your string arranging chops and skills. That's one of my favorite things. And in your singing, and like you said, you're the love that you have for the art of collaboration. You know, as a producer and as an artist, where it's, that's where you shine.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And the album's Waiting Game, and it's on Motema label. I always try to, put that on there because it's a small independent label, and, it takes a village, to make all these things happen.
Yes, it does.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's my pleasure as well, Terri Lyne. Everybody, stay safe, stay inspired. We'll see you all next week, and thank you for joining us.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terri Woolman.